Hello and welcome, my name is Disaster. This is Battlefield 1, and in today's weapon review we're going to be taking a closer look at the Parabellum MG14, the brand new LMG available to the support class, of course, in the In the Name of the Tsar DLC. Now in today's video we're going to be talking, of course, about the unlock requirements of this weapon, as well as, of course, its performance on the battlefield, the difference between the different variants available, how it compares to the competition, and how you can get the most out of it when using it on the battlefield. As we always do with DLC weapon comparisons, however, to start off with, we're going to be looking at the unlock requirements for this weapon, and in the case of the low weight, you're going to have to get 20 kills with the airburst mortar, most easily done in my opinion on a map like Argonne Forest, on a game mode like Operations, and you're going to have to destroy 2 airplanes with an LMG. My piece of advice here is simply get out the LMG and get bipoded up, get one with the larger magazine and that doesn't overheat too quickly, and do it on a game mode where you're going to find other people also shooting at those airplanes. In reality, while this may seem like a very daunting task, I managed to accomplish it quite quickly, and in the meantime, since having completed this task, I've actually shot down numerous additional aircraft with the help of something like the Parabellum MG14. If you want to unlock the suppressive variant of this weapon, those unlock requirements are going to be a little bit simpler, with 40 kills with the Lewis gun low weight needed, and further 50 vehicle repairs. Those are most easily done either in a game mode of Operations where you can stand behind a tank or armored vehicle that continuously takes fire, or even better, get on one of the brand new DLC maps where there is the heavy bomber available. Get into one of those heavy bombers, but not as pilot, as secondary, and one of the seats actually doesn't have guns or any gadgets available to it. For a matter of fact, you can only use basically your primary weapon when in that gunner seat, when in that bomber seat, and there you can actually get out your wrench and start repairing the bomber from within the bomber. And because of course everybody currently is shooting at planes and planes take a huge amount of damage consistently throughout a game, this is likely the fastest way you can get those 50 repairs done. All the better, of course, while playing some of the new DLC content. With that out of the way, then let's talk about the stats of the Parabellum. And as baseline here, to initially look at the numbers, we're going to be using the low weight variant. Now this low weight variant, the Parabellum per se, comes with a maximum damage of 23 and a minimum damage of 17.5, netting it a 5-shot kill all the way out to 30 meters and a 6-shot kill from 31 meters onwards. Is going to come with a fire rate record high, of course, for the support class at 700 rounds per minute, accompanied by a very good muzzle velocity at 870 meters per second and a relatively comfortable magazine size at 100. Given, of course, the relatively large magazine size, the reload times aren't on the more comfortable side, with a 6-second reload both on the short and long reload. And given, of course, this damage output paired with this large magazine, it comes as no surprise that you're going to be having to deal with quite a significant amount of recoil on this weapon, with 0.38 degrees vertical and 0.8 horizontal, that is to the left and right, accompanied by a first shot recoil multiplier of 1.8. While this weapon doesn't have extremely high vertical recoil and thus initially may seem like a weapon quite easily controllable, the quite hefty horizontal recoil means that its actual abilities at medium long range are strongly reined in, strongly limited by that very high horizontal recoil. The spread mechanics, always interesting on LMGs, no different in this case, with a base ADS here at 0.18, that is your minimum spread while aimed down sight and standing still, a value while aiming down sight and moving of 1.02, and hipfire unsurprisingly very poor at 3.75. More interestingly than that, however, is of course the first shot spread multiplier here identical both for ADS and hipfire at -6 and a spread increase of negative 0.099. In essence, what this is going to mean for you is that while your initial shot will be with its minimum spread at, for example, 0.18 if you're aiming down sight and not moving, your second shot will dramatically become less accurate, and it will actually take you until your 8th fired shot, that is in fully automatic mode, consecutively to actually return to your minimum spread, your maximum accuracy at 0.18. However, given the high fire rate of this weapon, it should be noted this minimum spread value is reacquired in a similar timely fashion as you would with some of these slower RPM weapons which have a less severe spread increase on the second shot. That out of the way, then, let's take a look at the key differences between the low weight variant of the Parabellum and the suppressive variant, the low weight being the one that we just looked at. First and foremost, the difference here obviously is one of optics. The suppressive comes with the suppressive typical optic with higher magnification options, as well as, of course, in my opinion, an easier to use sight, at least in most situations, and we'll get to this a little bit later on in the video. Other than that, these weapons don't have a huge amount of important differences. There are a few, however, and one of those is that the recoil decrease on the Parabellum low weight is better than on the suppressive, in other words higher. As such, the low weight's recoil will reset, typical for a low weight variant, much quicker than the suppressive variant of this weapon will. Furthermore, the Parabellum low weight needs one shot less to return to its minimum spread. As previously mentioned, you're going to be back at your minimum spread with the low weight variant at the 8th shot that you're firing. However, the Parabellum actually returns to its minimum spread at the 9th shot, so it takes an additional bullet. This comes, of course, courtesy of a higher first shot spread multiplier of -7 versus the Parabellum's -6. However, its spread increase per shot is actually lower, meaning that while it does take longer to attain its minimum spread once more, it doesn't actually increase to a higher maximum spread than the low weight variant does. So in summary there, it will take one shot longer to get back to its maximum accurate state. Its maximum spread, its maximum inaccuracy, however, is not higher than the low weight variant. The last difference here to note is actually that the spread decrease on the low weight at 7.65 degrees per second is much better than the 2.55 found on the suppressive. Meaning, of course, that if you are somebody who for some reason decides to tap fire LMGs, not that I would generally recommend that, but if you are for some reason, or you find yourself firing in shorter bursts, the Parabellum will actually reset its recoil much faster. Given, however, the spread models of LMGs, in my opinion, this isn't necessarily a quality that will net you much of an advantage on the battlefield. With the differences then being covered, this leads nicely into how we should be using these weapons and what the key differences in practice really are between the suppressive and the low weight. And let me get something out of the way straight away. In my opinion, there is only really one version of the Parabellum that you should be using on the battlefield, and that is the low weight. You don't really need to unlock the suppressive. There is no point having an optic on a weapon that has such severe horizontal recoil, meaning that in any scenario other than close quarters, where the low weight is the clear better choice, you're not going to really be able to make use of the higher degree of aimed accuracy, that is not in real terms but in performance terms on your side, that the better optic will offer. And other than that optic, really the suppressive only has disadvantages versus the low weight. It comes with lower recoil decrease, meaning the recoil means more time to reset. It takes longer to become fully accurate again, one shot longer. And furthermore, it has, of course, less spread decrease. Overall, it is the worst weapon, unless of course you're bipodding up. Both the low weight and the suppressive can be used as a bipod, and this is actually the only way you're going to be able to effectively use these weapons at medium-long range. However, there the suppressive does simply have the advantage because there that optic will mean that in reality you're likely going to have an easier time aiming down targets, taking people out with accurate shots. However, personally, I'm not a big fan of the bipod. Furthermore, find that the low weight variant, even when bipod, is very effective, and I rarely lack magnification to take out my targets at those ranges. Which brings, of course, us into when you should be using these weapons, especially considering now that mostly you should be using the low weight. Well, it's a close quarter LMG. It comes, however, a little bit with some caveats at that. Well, I do hip fire this weapon, and you'll see it in today's video. This is actually simply a bad habit in this case. This LMG is not to be hip fired unless you are really staring your opponent right into the eyes, looking deep into his soul. Other than that, it simply has too poor of a hip fire, independent of which variant you use. At close quarters and even some close quarters medium range, this weapon has some fantastic damage output. It's best played, of course, at the medium range and not the extreme close quarter, but not the medium long range, because there you will have time to, for example, ADS and won't just get mowed down by a shotgun or an automatico instantly. In that range, it is very good. In the general close quarter field, it is quite competent, while not the best weapon out there. But when it comes to flexibility, and rightfully so, this weapon lags clearly behind most of the LMGs, which can put out much more consistent damage across range. And I don't mean this on the basis of bullets to kill, but simply on the basis of spread and horizontal recoil models. The BAR 1918, independent of which variant you pick, will outperform this weapon, I'd say, from 30 or 40 meters onwards. Outwards from that distance, the BAR is the better choice. However, under those distances, of course, the Parabellum has the clear leg up. So if you're looking for a close quarter aggressive LMG, this is the weapon to choose, not the suppressive but the low weight. If you're looking for the best bipod weapon out there, then possibly do consider the suppressive variant of the Parabellum. Other than that, stick to the normal LMGs that you've already got, especially if you're playing the support class in a more supportive medium to medium long range role. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the Parabellum, on the unlock requirements. What have your experiences been with this weapon, or generally the DLC weapons? If you have any feedback, any suggestions, feel free to leave them down below in the comments or hit me up with them on Twitter. But with all that being said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching and hope to see you in the next Battlefield 1 video.